I want to thank you so much for listening to this conversation with me and my friend Caleb about leaving Christianity. I feel the need to clarify a couple things that I don't think were very clear in the conversation. The first thing, the big thing, is that I still very much identify as a Christian. I am committed to the church and to God as revealed in Jesus. I just have a lot of questions, and possibly more than I'm willing to admit. And somehow over the years, I've been able to divorce those questions and concerns from my relationship with God. But in this conversation, you're going to hear me wrestling, which leads me to my next point. There are very little answers in this conversation. Caleb and I are wrestling with some of the same questions in real time, which is why I sound confused. There are very little conclusions and answers. It's just sharing ideas and experiences. But nevertheless, we both believe this might be a helpful conversation for others. And lastly, if you want to continue this conversation with me, feel free to email me at hargonw@gmail.com. And if you want to continue this conversation with Caleb, shoot him an email at calebmhintz with a Z at gmail.com. Again, that's CALEBMHINTZ at gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Okay, we are recording here with my friend Caleb. And Caleb, I was thinking as I was driving, I don't know if I've had someone on the channel twice. So I think you're the first person that's been on the YouTube channel twice.
Wow.
And so I'm grateful that you're here, and I'm grateful that you have agreed to another conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it, man.
I didn't really know how to plan for this conversation, so I didn't. So I didn't plan. I just
Me
figured,
neither.
yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad. I figured we could just kind of just dialogue and just talk about your recent experiences, your recent thoughts, some of the things you felt. I'm just really just wanting to unpack that, just explore that with you. And I think the objective of this is to there are many people in my life that have made this transition out, that have left what they've thought they've believed, right, or what they did believe, right. And so I think this is a helpful resource and a helpful perspective. So I appreciate you offering your perspective and offering um, your experiences. So I just want to begin with that question. Last time you were on this channel, you were a Christian. And now, from what I know, you don't identify as a Christian now. And so I want to know about what changed. And maybe that could be the beginning of the conversation. What changed? And yeah, we can start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said so far is correct. So, um, yeah, I think it's interesting because actually the last time we talked was really right about towards the end of my journey as a Christian. At least for the time being, I'm open to anything in the future. But um, yeah, what happened? That's a big question. I think the most simple way I could put it is that I find it more likely that the claims of Christianity, and I know that's a very big thing, a big category, a big box, but
Mm-hmm.
I find it more likely that the claims of Christianity are false
Mm-hmm.
than that they are true. I find it unlikely that Jesus of Nazareth was God incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
I find it unlikely that he died and was raised from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find it unlikely that the Christian scriptures are really much different than any other literature. Things like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what led me to those conclusions? I don't want to say conclusions because I want to keep learning for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have it figured out,
Yeah.
but um, what led me to that point is um, a lot of listening. I tried to listen to a lot of different perspectives as best as I could. So I guess I could probably start by taking a step back and explaining more about what drove me to deconstruct, though I didn't use that word at the time or didn't think of
Mm-hmm.
that word, but what kind of initiated my my questioning process of my religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was I got really involved in my faith. I wanted to take it really seriously as an adult. So in college,
Mm-hmm.
I got involved in a campus ministry, and things kind of started going really fast from there. I got um, I was placed in a position of leadership very quickly, and started leading my own discipleship group, which is a Bible study basically.
Hmm.
Um, and the first year that I did it, I didn't feel good about it. I felt like the authority that I was stewarding was a really big deal,
Mm.
um, and that I wasn't doing it very well. And I wasn't satisfied with that, and so that also happened to coincide with the beginning of my relationship with my now fiance.
Hmm.
And I think just like the weight and the gravity of all of this
Mm.
kind of hit me all at once, and I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. I need to figure this out.
Mm.
And so it was pretty much the end of my sophomore year of college, like April, May, something like that. And I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out this summer. And like this whole Christianity thing, I'm going to figure it out. And then I'm going to be ready to be a husband and a discipleship group leader,
Mm.
like come next
Uh-huh.
semester. Um, and so, yeah, so my driving, um, my kind of underlying principle and all that, is that like truth has nothing to fear.
Mm.
And I believe that like, you know, God is a really difficult word and a really difficult concept, but
Yeah.
one of the one of the concepts that I think shares a lot of stuff with the concept of God is the concept of truth.
Hmm.
And so I believe that an honest search for truth, if Christianity is true, would bear that out.
Hmm.
And not to say that I'm infallible in my reasoning and my process and my
Hmm.
methodology, because I'm
Yeah.
absolutely not, and I
Hmm.
absolutely could be wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyone can be wrong.
yeah, right. But yeah, that was my kind of guideline. Truth has nothing to fear, and
Yeah.
I still did fear a lot.
Hmm.
But I prayed for courage and strength, and I pushed through
Hmm.
over the course of about a year and a half, I
Mm.
guess,
Yeah.
and spent a lot of time studying, researching scholars, apologists, counter apologists,
Hmm.
in fields of, textual criticism, history, philosophy, anthropology, archaeology. I mean,
Mm. My goodness, you are diving in the deep end.
I tried to dive in the
Yeah.
deep end. I
Uh-huh.
really did because I wanted to lay all my presuppositions
Yeah.
down and just start from the ground up
Hmm.
to the best of my ability. And there are things that you can't really challenge, um, or else you get in a really big
Mm.
mess. If you start to question, whether or not like your senses are reliable, for
Mm.
example, like you kind of need to just believe
Yeah.
that in order to like interact with our world.
Yeah.
But as far as like religious dogma, I tried to the best of my ability, set it all down and try to start over. Um,
Hmm.
and I had no intentions of like losing Christianity.
Yeah.
I actually feared that a lot, and we can
Hmm.
talk about that. I'm sure we will,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the big picture of the story.
Mm. So you had a lot of weight on you, and to address the weight, you did some searching and some looking so that you can feel more maybe secure with that weight. Would that be like a adequate summary of that a little bit?
I think so.
But and you started the journey just thinking that everything you were going to figure everything out, and that um, I'm sure that you will be stronger and that you'll be able to fill in the gaps,
Yeah,
right? That maybe that you had about the Christian experience or the Christian faith. Um, and that takes a lot of bravery and courage, first of all, because I don't know. I, I went through undergrad, and I was kind of thrown into that because I chose a Bible degree, and then I did seminary. So you're kind of thrown into it for the most part. But you didn't have a seminary degree, right? You this is just you kind of looking into stuff yourself, or did you pursue Bible in undergrad?
so it was a lot of self-guided stuff. I
Okay.
mean, I definitely, um, I would say like stuff that was accessible on YouTube is like
Okay.
the kind of stuff that I was into and
Yeah.
researching and watching and engaging.
Yeah.
Um, another um, so like yeah, it wasn't like for a degree, it wasn't for credit.
Yeah.
Um,
This is something that you're trying to satisfy within you, and I guess address
mhm,
within you, and you're kind of just taking that on by yourself. Um, People don't do that. I mean, well, at least I know there are people. I know people do this, all right, but I know it just takes a lot of courage to look at your beliefs and to question them and to critique and to explore and to scrutinize. It's interesting that you decided to take that on. So it was there something in particular that gave you were there examples around you of people doing this and they kind of said, oh, inspired you to take this task on to what got you to say, okay, I'm gonna face this.
mm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think the answer to your initial question is no. I don't think I was like seeing an example and following
Mm,
it with like a peer or something like
yeah.
that. Um, this process for me was um, very much separated from my peers. It
Hmm.
it caused me to feel a lot of um, separation and loneliness, which I think a lot of that was self-inflicted.
Mm,
Um, but as to what actually kind of drove me there, I think, like you said, there was a discomfort and like a recognition of like this of stakes, like a relationship that meant the world to me
yeah. Yeah.
with a woman who wanted me to serve God along with her, and the stakes of leading a group of young men to understand God better. And it just
Mm,
seemed like I should understand God better to do that,
yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Hmm. You're wanting to fill those shoes appropriately. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you talked about this fear because on one hand there's courage, right, but also there's this fear that you're experiencing because you don't know how it could turn out, and you're kind of just going through the uncertainty with that fear. Talk about that fear a little bit and maybe um, what you were thinking along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think the biggest things were like kind of the social ramifications, and the relational ramifications of like potentially, I mean, the big bad would be like losing my faith altogether, but even, adopting some sort of beliefs or ideas that, other people that I know and care about would think are heretical, like even if it's within still a Christian context. That was a source of a lot of fear for me. I think I also I grew I found a lot of peace and a lot of comfort within my spiritual practice as a college student before all of this process, and certainly a lot of comfort and support within my spiritual community. So um putting kind of trying to dig into my faith, um from a more intellectual perspective, was a significant challenge to my spiritual practice. So that was a source of a lot of fear as well. Um, Something that I did a few times, was I would listen to like a deconversion story or
Mm,
like a deconversion testimony,
yeah.
and I would find myself relating a lot to like the steps that the people were going through,
Hmm.
and I would be like, oh no, like
Mm,
look where they ended up,
yeah.
some atheist YouTuber, this is bad news.
Yeah.
So that those all kind of played into it.
Mm. And it's funny you say that because it was like an atheist YouTuber that got me to want to explore my faith a little deeper. Because it was, and I was like a education major when I first got to college, and I changed that because there was a YouTuber. I used to make YouTube videos back then on another channel. A YouTuber, he was an atheist. He used to always just kind of ask me all these questions, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer this. So I pursued Bible and ministry so that I knew how to answer those questions. and I still don't know how to answer those questions. So my degree gave me the tools. I got some tools. Maybe I got some ways to answer or to consider them. I don't even know if I can give answers anymore. I think I'm at a place in my life where I got ideas. Like I have ideas. I don't know if like I love what you said about conclusions. Like you don't want to really want to make conclusions. I think that's healthy. I mean, because yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure it out just like everybody else. And like I said, I got ideas, good ideas that have been helpful for me and to me, and I want to share those. But yeah, I really I had great expectations for my studies and my degree, and I was kind of let down there. And I'm still I think I'm still very much on that journey of deconstructing. And I think it was kind of relationships in my life that encouraged me to start that journey. And I was even thinking about this when I was as I was driving over to set up for this conversation. Like, what would be the point for me? You know, I wonder if I could ever get to that point of where it's like I want to know from your perspective. I know this is not like a overnight thing. Like it's hard. I'm sure it hurts to kind of lose this and to let it go. And from what I've heard, was that your experience too? Is it like losing a loved one almost to some degree?
Yes, it's been very challenging. In a lot of ways, I think there's setting aside for the moment the component of my relationship with God, um, just my relationships with people. I think I can count on one hand the amount of close relationships I've had in my life with non-Christian people. Um, I've been in Christian circles for my whole life. My friends have been Christian for
Yeah,
my whole life, my family,
yeah,
everybody. And so
same here.
being, I mean, losing that makes all of those relationships a little different, sometimes very different. Um,
Yeah,
but also, yeah, things like prayer. I didn't used to struggle to talk to God. It used to be very
mm,
natural, and my peers in my campus ministry would affirm me so much in that I was kind of like I kind of had a reputation as like a prayer warrior within my campus ministry,
mm,
and that
yeah,
became very hard for me.
hmm,
I would sit down to do it, and then I would be like, I don't even know if anyone's listening, and it would be
mm,
so hard. It would be such a barrier, and it's still. I know I'm speaking in past tense right now, but it still is in a lot of ways
mm,
really hard
yeah,
to like
hmm,
engage in that way again,
hmm,
um, because I just the way that my mind works. Like I want to understand something before I like
yeah,
engage in it. Um,
mm,
but I think that's a bit of an illusion, to be honest. I think understanding things and like having control over them is like not real.
mm,
So,
mm. And I'm wondering, like, you said this is how your mind works. Like, so this is how you're wired, right? I'm sure you've always been like an inquisitive person that needs to know how things work, right? You just can't get on the bandwagon and just go along to get along, right? You that's kind of in your nature to question. Would you say that?
right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which butts heads against the kind of evangelical culture that I've been immersed in for my entire life.
Yeah, that
So that's that's also challenging.
mm, that doesn't really offer you that space to question and to wrestle, which is crazy because I think that is all throughout the scripture narrative, the wrestling. I think there is some very strong wrestling and all throughout.
Yeah,
But we don't get the
there's some literal
yeah
wrestling.
yeah yeah that's right. We don't really get that modeled well. I think generally speaking, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, we don't get that modeled well. And so I think even because I think part of that is because there's a fear of what could be lost. Because I think that's part of it. I think part of a question is receiving an answer that you may not like. You know, that's part of asking a question. It's there's a possibility where you may not end up where you thought you were going to end up, and but at the same time, like there's something beautiful about that at the same time, because how else do you grow? I think you have to to, to be open to the possibility. Okay, maybe this could be loss. Okay, I'm saying a lot. I feel like I need to get back into my groove of I don't know. I'm just trying to process, what you're saying, and trying to yeah, trying to be where
Yeah,
you
me and
are.
you both, man.
Yeah, because I know it's a lot, and especially thinking about, maybe you can shed a little bit light about this. How has your family received this? How's that affected
Yeah,
family relationships?
yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. I'm I'm in the infancy stages of kind of this new chapter of those
Yeah. Hmm.
relationships, obviously. And I don't want to get too into
Yeah.
detail about
Yeah.
some things,
Hmm.
out of respect and privacy, but
That's right.
um, I will share what I can for sure and what I feel comfortable with. In certain ways, sharing this with my family has gone better than I expected. Um,
Okay.
and in other ways, it's been a lot more difficult than I anticipated. Um,
Hmm.
I think the Christianity that I was immersed in that I grew up in, and that my family embodies, is um, very exclusive,
Hmm.
and it's very strictly defined. There are two camps of people. The human population is divided into two sections, right?
Mm.
It's the saved and it's the
That's right.
lost.
Yeah. Hmm.
The children of God and the children of the devil.
Hmm.
Um, and so, with like, if you're a member of one group, like, it is going to drastically impact the way that you interact with members of the other
Mm.
group, um, in that framework, right? Because those guys, you know, when they die, they're going to burn forever.
Mm.
Um, and as much as, like, I think Christians, in my experience anyway, some of them don't deny it, but a lot of them will say, it's not about fire insurance. It's about, you know, having a relationship with
Hmm.
Jesus and, experiencing the fruit of that.
Hmm.
But, when I share the news that I share with my family, the concern is that I'm going to go to hell,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's not that I'm losing, my opportunity to, you know, hang out at church.
Mm.
Um, and that's an oversimplification, of
Mm.
course, as everything that I say likely will
Yeah.
be. Um, but yeah, it's been a challenge. I would say the most difficult thing that I have encountered is I have a deep desire to continue to learn and to continue to engage and
Yeah.
to dialogue.
Hmm.
Um, because I think that the pursuit of, like, further mutual understanding and, like, open-mindedness and, like, dialogue between parties that have different perspectives, like what's going on right now, I think that's, like, the most amazing thing ever. I think that's, like, the key
Yeah.
to progress, the key to
Hmm.
growth.
Yeah.
And I have had experiences trying to do that with members of my family, and I have, when that's not reciprocated, when there's no interest there, um, that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm being honest with them and sharing and asking questions, and they're um like, I can be a little more concrete. I've had multiple family members tell me, like, point blank, it is impossible that I am wrong about this.
Mm.
Um, and so when someone says that to me, I mean, personally, I don't think there's anything more prideful that a person can possibly say,
Mm.
is that I am omniscient, at
Mm.
least regarding this subject matter.
Yeah.
That seems like pretty blatantly idolatrous,
Mm.
I think.
Hmm.
But yet it's the stance that I encounter. and I just don't know how to. I don't know how to proceed. You know,
Yeah.
if you're trying to talk to somebody and they're not open, like even in the very slightest,
Yeah.
um, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's like watching two like politicians just like
Mm,
yelling at each other on a debate stage or
yeah.
something. Like there's no progress
Yeah.
made at all.
Yeah.
Nothing, you know?
Mm,
So that's been a challenge. I think yeah, I don't know. There's a lot I could say, but
mhm.
that in particular sticks out to me.
Yeah. So not being able to even have the opportunity to share, what you're thinking, right, and what you're experiencing.
Yeah. And to clarify, so I've also evolved on my feelings about this, as I'm sure I will continue to. Um,
Mhm.
like as this interview and the previous interview like elucidate, like things change. So
Yeah,
um,
that's right.
I, very early on in my deconverted state, I had a desire to combat like religion and like challenge it, and I thought it
Hmm.
was a bad thing. I don't I no longer think that religion is a bad thing. That is
Hmm.
like way too simple of a way to characterize it.
Hmm.
Religion is very nuanced and very embedded in like all sorts of facets of like the human experience, and it can
Uh-huh.
result in a lot of good. Um, and I think one of the things that has like really helped me to understand that is I'm not sure if he'll watch this. I guess if I share it with him, then he probably will. But my brother very recently converted to Christianity, and
Okay.
he's a year younger than I am, and he had a very troubled adolescence, and he's doing very well now. And like his faith, it seems from my perspective, thus far anyway, has been like a really good thing for him and for his life and for his
Mm.
relationships. Um, and that's
Mm.
true for a lot of people. Like it was true for me. Like
Yeah.
my faith was like a really good thing for me. It didn't solve
Yeah.
all my problems, but there were a lot of things about it that I benefited from. And so there are a few things about religion that I think are just flatly harmful. Um,
Hmm.
and I've kind of distilled
And I'm sure I would agree with those.
Yeah, I've distilled it kind of down to two things, which are one, the reinforcement of like just innate tribalistic tendencies, in group, out group
Yeah.
stuff, like pretty straightforward. That happens
Yeah. Hmm.
when you put
Hmm.
labels on stuff, when you identify as something, that's a byproduct of it.
Yeah.
Um, and then secondly, the perpetuation of dogmatic thinking over critical thinking. Um,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think that's also harmful. But that
Hmm.
just characterizing religion as a bad thing is not. I don't think that's. I understand why a person would feel that way, and there are a lot of
Hmm.
really legitimate reasons to. But to me, that's
Yeah.
a little bit too simple. Um, but
Yeah.
I'm forgetting what you asked me, Wesley. Um,
I I think it was a general question about
yeah.
it was maybe something tied to the family
Hmm.
topic.
Oh, I remember. I remember what I was gonna say. I remember what I was gonna say. Um, I, to be clear, I'm not trying to deconvert my family members. That was what I was gonna say. I don't have a goal. Not that I think I'm even capable of it, if I wanted to, but um, like my vision of success is not like my mom and my brother and my aunt not being Christian anymore. Um, however, there are things that they believe that I think are harmful to them and harmful to our relationships, and I would love to see that change. Um, I think members of my family believing that when I die, I will be eternally tormented, separated from God, and just in unbearable agony. I think they would be better off not believing that. Um, and I would love for them not to believe that. Um, so that's one example. That's a good example, I think. And that tends to be the direction I go in anyway, because the subject of hell is the subject that I studied more than any other, um, as far as like theological stuff goes. And you know that I became a universalist and all of that, but yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to clarify.
Okay. I was wondering as you were saying that, you know, there are different when you say you're not a Christian anymore, and even when I think about what a Christian is, that is pretty complex. There is a YouTuber that I loved watching. His name was Joseph Solomon. He was a big Christian YouTuber, and he kind of shifted away as well. And one of the things he talked about constantly is that if I was ever to go back to a Christian faith, it won't look like the dogmatic, like the fundamentalist, I can't go back to a Christian posture that is not universalist, for instance. Maybe that's an example. Like I have to be open to those ideas to still have room for a Christian faith. So my question for you is, um, you know, you're not Christian anymore. So what does that mean? Are you how do you relate to God? How do you relate to um, life now? Like, what is your framework? Because in a lot of ways, Christianity it's your framework. It's your framework for reality, for hope, for some people, it's like tied up to things that it shouldn't be tied up to, but it's tied up tightly. So that's kind of like an open question that I'm offering you.
Yeah, and it's a good question. I so I didn't abandon Christianity as my framework and immediately replace it with something else. Um, I am agnostic. That's how I would identify. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of in the position of I guess if you define agnosticism as not knowing whether or not God exists, right? I think everyone should be agnostic.
I thought about that on the way here too. I think there's a little bit of that posture, and even atheists and within all of us. I think a little bit. It has to
I
be. I
think
think.
there has to be, because how could you know? Like,
Yeah.
I would say to the theist, you believe that God exists, but like, are you
Yeah.
100% sure? Like, is it
Yeah.
possible that you're
Yeah.
wrong? And to
Yeah.
the atheist, like, is it 100%
Mm.
sure that there
Yeah.
is no God? Like, how
Yeah.
do you know that? I
Yeah.
don't think that's even possible. I
Yeah.
don't think we have the means
That's right. Yeah.
to like to ground such a statement. Um, but that's the kind of the semantics aside. Um I don't have like a set of scriptures that I turn to, or a you know like an underlying, this is my purpose in life, is to bring souls to Christ or anything like that. I can tell you what does resonate with me at this time, um, which is, you know, if anything is godly and if anything is good and important in this life, I think it's growth and connection. Um, I think learning for me is not just an academic exercise, but I mean, I learn relationally and I learn emotionally and I learn. I seek to continue to learn as long as that's possible, which maybe is forever. I don't know. But I think connection as well. Like I think if there's anything that is divine, I think it's connection. Like um, especially connection to other people. Um, and that aligns very well with the model of theism, like pantheism or panentheism, which is like panentheism in particular. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's basically the idea that God is.
Pantheism is God is everything. Pantheism is God is within everything. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I said this to my fiance the other day, like the fact that like you and I can like move these like this weird slimy muscle in our mouth and like move air around in our throat, and that can cause another person to feel and to feel so strongly, um,
Uh-huh.
that's really incredible and that's really confusing.
It is.
Um,
Yeah. Yep.
and yeah, that fascinates me so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me think and it makes me wonder that like I don't know, like this isn't really what I'm here for or here to talk about, but like if I had to place a bet, I don't think materialism is true. I don't think atheism is true. If I had to tell you right now, that could be wrong. My assessment could be wrong, but like it's things like that, and it's like human connection, really, and empathy, and stuff of that nature that makes me think there's more to this. But I don't think it's external. You know, I don't think it's up in the heavens, some
Mm-hmm.
like looking down on us. I
Yeah.
think it's here, um, and I think it's like within and and without potentially. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. Like I said, I'm agnostic, so
It's
yeah.
funny because as you're talking, even as like describing your framework and just talking about connection and like you're almost having like an
Hmm.
existential um there's something existential about being able to recognize
Yeah,
this is weird. Like we're talking, there's muscles going or there's weird stuff going
it's
on.
really
I'm
weird.
saying some words, you're able to understand me and I don't know, I'm moving my hand. This is weird. I think there's something beautiful about that and like I I'm finding myself the more I grow, the more I have
Mhm.
in common with people that I don't expect to have common ideas, common experiences with. And I'm starting to think that maybe the church needs more agnostics in their building, or more atheists. With I know that
Mhm.
that's really it's kind of hard to imagine that in a lot of spaces, but
Yeah,
I don't know. It just I think a lot of what we're talking about is the same thing. I think in some ways. Yeah, I'm kind of just going everywhere with that thought, but as you were speaking, I was like, wow,
yeah.
yeah, I've been there. I feel like I can agree with that experience of like, wow, this is crazy, this is weird. Um, and also like I don't know. I mean, there's so much I don't know. I'm struggling to even talk about my faith these days. I'm not sure if you kind of noticing a shift on my
Mhm.
content. I feel like everything I talk about in my life has to be poetic now. Like it has to be poetic. Because I don't really trying to
Yeah.
I don't really know how to talk about things. Because the this is just it's starting to become beyond me. And which is why I start to wonder like am I on this road? And it's just like that's just part of existing. Like you're gonna have things that you're gonna lose, and you're gonna have things that you're going to receive. And I think the key is
Mm.
to do what you're doing, which is to stay open, right? And to stay open means you could be dropped, you could be dropped, but you also can be caught at the same time. So I'm just kind of rambling, responding to what you said about the weird stuff that happens when we talk.
Yeah. No, I got you, man. Like I think I don't know how many churches are gonna be taking your advice, but I think it's good advice. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like people need to talk, and like it's not just religious people that don't want to listen. Like yeah, and like the tribalism that like I saw in religion that I just really hated. Um, like I found myself like just like that, like slipping into it on the other side. Um, and it's just like it's a part of human nature that I think religion can be an outlet for, but so can politics, and so can like ethnicity, and so can all kinds of different things be an outlet for the expression of it. And it's weird because I don't know why I don't know why it bothers me. Like, I don't know why I see tribalism as a bad thing. I believe so strongly that it is, but like, I'm not sure why. Because, like, the majority of humans and human history and just like it's built in for a reason, right? Because, like, over millions of years, like this is how it's gone, and this is how we've successfully navigated our world.
Yeah, it was a survival method and technique, right? You
Right.
kind of needed that.
Yeah. So like in this like post enlightenment world where, like I I don't know. I maybe I'm just like maybe I'm just crazy. That's definitely on the table. But I feel strongly that people need to talk, and especially people need to talk to people that they don't want to talk to.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think we can all
Yeah.
benefit from more talking and more listening, and being able to like practice keeping your ego at bay. You know what I mean? Like, can I listen to this person that is close to me? I mean, we're literally sitting across from each other. Like, can I sit, hold my ego at bay, hold my desire to correct? You know what I mean? Like, can I hold all that at bay? Just to just
Mhm.
to listen and to be and to pay attention to the experience of this human being in front of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think is next steps for you? Um, I know this has been a you said a year and a half journey for you, just kind of exploring and trying to um, build something, but at the same time, you were pulling stuff apart and eventually lost something. Um, but I see that you're wanting to grow. But do you feel anything else that you're pulled to next steps?
Yeah, that's a good question. Lately, I think from a spiritual perspective, I'm certainly looking for community and have a desire for community.
Yeah.
Um, that is something that I know for sure was really beneficial to me
Hmm.
as far as spiritual growth in the past. Um, Now, I know that like a monastic approach also for many people is, but that's not what I want. I've had enough of feeling alone and isolated,
Mm,
I think.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's the community thing. That's weird because, I could go to a church, right? And I have gone to a couple different churches. And it's different now. But like I still have that desire. Like maybe like a Unitarian Universalist church. I want to try to go to a place of worship like that. I mean, I loved your church, Wesley, when I was able to go there. That felt to me like a space I could grow.
You're always welcomed. You know that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a commute for me now, but you never know you never know. Um, But yeah, besides that, I think right now I'm kind of focusing more on, there are things that I want to like, I want to read more and I want to like get into meditating and more like contemplative stuff. But lately, to be honest with you, like just pouring into my relationship with my fiance in particular, and just trying to um, be a healthier person, like all around, like sleeping more regularly and drinking water and exercising, like that kind of stuff is like,
Yeah. Just the basic stuff, right? Basic human stuff.
yeah, I think that's kind of more where my focus is currently. And I think for what I'm doing now, um, I think things are going well, but I am hungry still for sure. Um, for something. I'm not sure what exactly, um, but I hope to find it, or at least find whatever it is for whatever moment it is.
Yeah, because the search probably doesn't stop. From what I know about the human experience, we're gonna keep looking.
Yeah, and I guess to be clear, like Christianity isn't like something that I've like checked off and rolled out. Um, Now, like similarly to what you were talking about with the guy who said, if he were to ever return to Christianity, it would have to be a little different. Um, and that's definitely true for me. I could never be a young Earth creationist again, um, or something like that. But Like I, I have a really close friend who, I mean, he says that I am a Christian and I just
That's
don't
how I
know it.
feel. I wasn't going to say that because I didn't want to be that guy, but I don't know. Just this conversation doesn't like when I think about, and this is just a broad statement I'm making because and there are people in my life that are agnostic. And in the past, when I would think about atheists or agnostic people, it wouldn't be the warm people that I engaged with. Like I wouldn't have thought about them, and I wouldn't have thought about. I don't know. It's just really enlightening. So I'll just say that part, and just you can go back to what you were saying about your friend. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good, Wesley. But yeah, no, like I appreciate. I I could talk a lot about like that friend in particular and like the things that he says and the insights that he has. But the point I was trying to make is that like whatever it means, like you said before, like defining what Christian means is like that's very different for different people. But I think that's like on the table for me. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. But I'm trying to like I still try to engage with it. Like I still try to listen to um, you know, the Christian content creators that I used to listen to, and I still try to like stay in the loop on that to some extent, and I still like to engage with my Christian peers, and yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I was going, but
Yeah, so this is what I've been struggling with. Like, what does it mean to be a Christian? I've been really struggling with this, and I've had different people give me responses, and it's crazy for a pastor to feel this way, I think. But this is something I've been struggling with recently. Like, what exactly does that mean? Um, so I think when I'm trying to figure out the question, maybe the question is, um, yeah, what is the big difference between where you were and where you are?
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think the difference is more in like I think just like the beliefs, like the religious beliefs that I once held, I no longer do. Like Christian, right? The word Christian means little Christ or follower of Christ, and of course that refers to Jesus, right? And so like I don't I don't believe that Jesus, the historical person, who I think he was a historical person, but I don't believe that he was um like God or the Messiah. And so like if I die and end up standing in front of a throne that Jesus is sitting on, I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry, like that was my bad, but like here I am, Lord,
My bad, bro. Right?
Yeah. And I think Jesus will definitely
Yep. Here I am. Send me.
yeah, absolutely. And I think Jesus will be cool with that if we get to that point. I really do. I really believe that. Um, but anyway, that's why the to me the label doesn't make sense because nothing about the way that I identify has to do with Jesus. Um, to me, you know, at least who I believe that Jesus like historically most likely was.
So that makes sense. Okay. I guess I forgot about the
Yeah.
Jesus part. Yeah. Yeah. As far as like, yeah, this is yeah. Okay. And man, this is just full transparency mode. Like this is something I've been wrestling with. Like what does this all mean? And I'm grounded on something just
Hmm.
about every day. Like there's something that grounds me, like an idea or concept that grounds me. But when I start to get to talking, and I'm like, I'm talking to this person that I feel is in it is filled with the Spirit of Christ, right? Whatever that means, right? Um, I
Yeah.
something I struggle to define or articulate.
Hmm.
I feel that.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Do you feel a certain freedom that you didn't have before to think, to explore, to even say something about the Christian experience that you couldn't say before?
Short answer, yes. Um, I think the best example I can point to is I find like the study of religion and philosophy and theology and all of that stuff. I find it really fascinating, and like I really enjoy it. But as a Christian, um, that was still true. I found it fascinating and I enjoyed it, but it also came with some dread, um, because I feared that it could result in me losing my faith. Um, you know, and now I think I feel a lot more free to learn, and to grow in that way from that perspective. Um, and like I don't know, historical Jesus research isn't something that like I fear, um, anymore. For example, I think I had another thought that kind of slipped my mind, but I think I also feel this isn't quite the same thing, but I think I just feel like less less judgmental in a lot of ways. Um, like having been a Christian and now no longer being a Christian, I can understand a lot about where they're coming from. Um, and I think that's very helpful. Like an example, I think, is like going back to the health thing, right? Like if a Christian says to me, um, I really like if they're proselytizing to me and saying like accept Jesus or else like you're gonna go to hell. Like a lot of people would find that very offensive. And I totally get that. Like I totally get why they would be offended by that because telling someone that they're going to go to hell when they die is like it's pretty disrespectful and rude. Um, but like me now, I believed that once, right? And so like when someone says that to me, I don't get offended, I don't get defensive, like because I know that for one, they really believe that and they don't want that to happen. And that's why they're telling me that, you know? Um, they're not telling me that to like hurt my feelings. They're saying that because they don't want me to go to hell, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
I don't want them to go to
Yeah.
hell, you know. So like,
Yeah.
I
And
think
for them, your eternal destiny is more important than your feelings.
correct, and absolutely it is, you know. Like they're right about that. So yeah, I think that's one example where like I think just understanding different perspectives allows for more empathy. I think and understanding. Yeah.
It seems like you found a peace. I think to be able to kind of let that go. Even though you're wrestling with it for so long.
Yeah, I think there is a certain degree of peace that I have like achieved that I didn't used to have, but like I don't know being the answer to just about every conceivable question, is like not intrinsically comforting. But it is like reality. So it's something that I've been learning how to accept and how to manage. And it's still like that's still a process that I think will continue for the rest of my life. But I think your assessment that I have found some peace is accurate.
At
Yeah.
least for the moment, right? Until it's some
Yep.
something kind of and who knows, maybe yeah, I don't
Yep.
I had a big existential crisis this past year where I was literally just like, wow, um, why am I here? Type of thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
know I kind of have an imagination of what it might feel to float a little bit, right? Because that's kind of what happens when you let go of the framework. When you say, okay, I don't subscribe to this anymore. You're kind of just floating, right? And so yeah. But for me, I'm getting grounded
Yep.
back into to where I am and what I think and what I believe. But I don't know. I'm kind of everywhere, Caleb. But I really appreciate you and your honesty. I appreciate
Yeah.
your transparency. I appreciate you being willing to share your experience about losing faith. And I'm grateful that you're open. And I'm excited to see what goes next. I'm excited to hear about you as a person and your experiences. And I just want to thank you for coming and sharing your perspective.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to do it, man. And I really appreciate you and your demeanor and the way that you steward your platform, and the position
Mm-hmm.
of influence that you have. not just with your content, but in your community. I know the way that you approach that, and with your family and all that. So yeah, I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, who knows? It could be another conversation that we can have about the opposite. I mean, who knows? This is life.
Bro, next time you're gonna be the atheist, and I'm gonna be like a monk or something.
Don't say that if my mom is watching this. She don't want to hear that. Okay. But yeah,
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
I thank you for your perspective and yeah, blessings to your journey. I'm gonna say blessings to your journey. And yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
you too, Wesley. I appreciate it.
I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed this conversation with me and my friend Caleb. And as I mentioned in the discussion, I'm having a hard time these days making a distinction between a Christian and a non Christian. And in ways that I can't explain beyond my reason, I felt the peace of Christ in this discussion. I felt like I was talking to a brother in Christ. And at this stage of my life, I'm convinced that Christianity has a lot more to do with surrender than anything else. So, with this in mind, I'd like to leave us with a prayer. To the source of all knowledge, we surrender what we know and don't know. We surrender what we understand and don't understand. We surrender what we believe and don't believe. To the source of all love, we surrender our minds and our questions. We surrender our concepts and constructs. We surrender our perspectives and assumptions. To the source of all life, we surrender our senses and experiences. We surrender our rejection and acceptance. We surrender ourselves and all we hold valuable. This we pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.